Duke Loves Wrestling presents.
Look at what we have here, folks.
The Rundown.
The cream of the crop, and there is no one that does it better than
The Duke.
The wait is finally over, ladies and gentlemen. Your man, Duke Loves Wrestling, has returned with The Rundown. That's right, folks. We have an exciting show for you this week. So much to cover, so much to go over. I hope that you've been doing well and that you're all healthy out there. We're going to start off with my not-so-random thoughts, and we'll transition into the WWE recap before I give some final thoughts. So first and foremost, let's jump into the not-so-random thoughts.
Well, I'll tell you what I think.
Folks, this past week was huge for pro wrestling. The industry has seemed to have taken over the entire world. I mean, my goodness, everything from Brock Lesnar competing in UFC 200 to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson having the #1 movie in America, all the way to John Cena, of all people, John Cena hosting the ESPYS Awards. It's clear that pro wrestling is filled with stars that have massive crossover appeal. Make no mistake about it, folks. Pro wrestlers are comic book-esque superheroes come to life. It would be wise for companies to continue to tap into that crossover appeal, because the more people that take notice and the more people who are talking about those affiliated with pro wrestling, the healthier the pro wrestling business is going to be as a whole. I mean, think about it. You know, it's absolutely amazing that you have a guy like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's a #1 action movie star on the planet, okay? He had a #1 movie this year. What was it? The Central Intelligence, where he starred alongside the uber-talented Kevin Hart. It was hilarious. It was fantastic. I mean, The Rock, he shined through. You know, just a really cool character that he played in that movie. And oh, by the way, let's not forget that his television show Ballers premieres with season 2 this upcoming weekend. Okay? Now, for those who don't know this, The Rock comes from a pro wrestling family background. That includes his grandfather on his mother's side, his own father, his uncles. He has various cousins, including the Usos and Roman Reigns. I mean, this guy, he's amazing, okay? When it comes to pro wrestling, it's in his blood. What's most interesting about The Rock, though, is despite being a top draw in Hollywood, he never shies away from his pro wrestling roots. In fact, he continues to embrace it. That is huge, folks, and it should be commended. He's down to help anytime the wrestling industry, specifically WWE, needs him. Okay? And because of that, I would say that he is a main reason why pro wrestling has been seen in a more mainstream and positive light in the past decade. Okay? Because of this crossover appeal by people, specifically guys like The Rock. So kudos to him for that. Now you take Brock Lesnar, who I brought up before. My goodness. He had that match against Mark Hunt at UFC 200 this past weekend. And let me tell you something. It was a heck of a battle. These two guys, you're talking about big, burly, rough, and tumble, crazy men. They beat the living snot out of each other for 3 hard-fought rounds, folks. In the end, it went to a unanimous decision by the judges at ringside. Brock Lesnar won the match, and rightfully so. I mean, he really gave Mark Hunt a beating. But Brock Lesnar didn't walk out unscathed. I mean, he had a nice shiner on his eye because Mark Hunt is a knockout artist, and throughout the match, he had Lesnar in some tough positions at times. But, hey, it was what it was. Now, mind you, this win signaled a huge accomplishment for Lesnar, who had not even stepped foot in an official MMA ring to fight on a card in over 5 years. I mean, he had a condition, diverticulitis or whatever, something that almost killed him. So he had to put his MMA career on hold for a period of time. So for this guy to step back into the ring and be able to pull off a convincing victory against a tough guy like Mark Hunt, who throughout the years has continued to fight, that's pretty cool, okay? It'll be interesting to see if Lesnar returns to the UFC again in the near future. Because, look, he would be box office money in the bank, baby, if he were to challenge for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Can you imagine that? Everybody would line up to see Brock Lesnar fight whomever and potentially become UFC Heavyweight Champion again. Okay? Keep an eye out, because as you know, Lesnar is going to be competing back in the WWE ring next month for SummerSlam. It was just announced that his opponent is going to be none other than Mr. RKO Randy Orton, who's returning from injury. So this Lesnar, he's going back and forth doing all kinds of crazy stuff, man. This guy is serious. And from what I understand, he made $2.5 million off of that one fight with Mark Hunt alone, which is no big deal since UFC just got sold for about $4.6 billion. That's billion with a B. $1 billion, folks. So they can afford to pay Brock Lesnar $2.5 million for one single solitary fight. So, like I said, we'll have to stay tuned. But once again, this contributes to pro wrestling being seen in a positive light. Because here you have a major pro wrestling star like Brock Lesnar who can go into a legitimate sport like mixed martial arts with the number one company, UFC, beat the hell out of a guy, and come back and then wrestle again in pro wrestling. I mean, it's amazing, you know. So, hey, hats off to Brock Lesnar. That's good for you, brother.
Nice work.
John Cena hosted the ESPY Awards. Now, for those who are not familiar, the ESPYs are ESPN's version of the Emmys. The difference is it's exclusively awards for professionals within the sporting world. Okay, so mostly athletes, journalists, television journalists, what have you. They win the awards and what have you. It's a pretty cool star-studded event. It has grown through the years. I think it's been around for at least 20 years now, but it's grown. In fact, the last couple of years, it's been broadcasted not on ESPN Live. It's been broadcasted on ABC. Okay? So that's nationally, internationally televised there, folks, for the world to see. It's pretty cool. So imagine the face of the World Wrestling Entertainment, John Cena, is being broadcasted all over the world on a major network like that. This is huge. Okay? And for Cena's part, he received high marks from critics for his hosting skills. Now, this may lead to him being asked back to host again, which would be cool. Look, Cena is as engaging and as talented as they come, with a deceptively hilarious side to his personality. And listen, if you're not paying attention, it'll catch you off guard. If you're just paying attention to this guy with these big muscles and that muscular face, you know when you look at somebody and they got that muscle face, like their jaw is just, they look like they chew rocks for breakfast. Look at John Cena. He looks exactly like that, okay? But the guy is hilarious. And he really is a personable person, okay? He understands how to communicate with people. He understands how to get people on his side, so to speak, okay? To allow people to let their guards down and accept him as just a regular, decent human being. The WWE legend is getting closer and closer to the end of his pro wrestling career as age and injuries are starting to catch up to him. Anything that involves getting him out in front of a large crowd that may not be familiar with pro wrestling is a major bonus for him, but it's also a major bonus for the entire wrestling industry, okay? So hopefully WWE continues to encourage Cena to do these hosting gigs, do the TV show like he had, that American Grit show or whatever it was called that he had on Fox. Movies, you know, how he was in that crazy movie where he was acting like a fool with Dolph Ziggler's ex-girlfriend. You know what I'm talking about, folks. As we've seen with legends like The Rock, any positive view of Cena will translate into positive views of pro wrestling as a whole. So, hey, Cena, I give you a hard time, especially with this new storyline that we have going on where AJ Styles, the Machine Gun Carl Anderson, and Doc Gallows talk about doing everything, you know, wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, and then beat up John Cena. That's the new gimmick. Everything is beat up John Cena. There's actually a hashtag, beat up John Cena, which is awesome. I give you a hard time, brother, but listen, I respect you to the hills, appreciate what you've done and what you continue to do, and wish you nothing but success, because I'm telling you, this guy, folks, he has had so many injuries, and he's been so beat up, and he's been carrying the WWE for at least 15 years now. That's not easy. And he really is the only superstar in the modern day, at least in the past 30 years, to do something like that. You'd have to go all the way back to a guy like Bruno Sammartino to even come close. And even Bruno, I don't think Bruno worked on top like Cena has for 15 straight years. So there's something to be said about that, folks. So, hey, hats off to them. We move on to TNA Impact. They had TNA Impact this past Tuesday, and there was a quote-unquote live edition. Hey, I don't understand this nonsense about TNA Impact being live, and I'll tell you why. They talk about the fact that they start taping at 8 p.m., but the show starts at 9 p.m. So how the heck is the show live? It's not live. So I guess it's just a big fictitious something or other going on. I don't know. But, folks, the show is not live. But anyway, even though it's said live, you figure it out. Anyway, for my time, the best offering on the show was a TNA Knockouts match that pitted the champion, Sienna, in a fatal four-way match against Marty Bell, Jade, and Gail Kim. I encourage everybody, listen, head over to ImpactWrestling.com, check out the match. Hopefully they have it up there. If you can't find it there and you have on demand, like I do with Comcast, pull it up on demand. But, folks, check out this match because it's definitely worth it. It was a great match. Okay, it's clear, and I talk about her every week, and I know folks are like, all right, dude, we understand. You're a fan of hers, whatever. But listen, I'm serious. Sienna is one of the better wrestlers in the business today. I mean, hey, her work for the most part is crisp. She is expertly expressive, okay? She gets in there, and she manages to do moves and use her body language, especially her face, to make everything she does look that much more impactful. And she manages to pull this off without being over the top about it. You know, some people, they take it to another level, and it ends up becoming ridiculous. This is not something that she does. Okay, Sienna is really on point. If more wrestlers took the time to hone their craft the way Sienna has, especially wrestlers in TNA, okay, we would have an overall higher quality of pro wrestling to watch every week. So that's something to keep in mind, folks. And hey, look, mind you, it certainly doesn't hurt that Sienna's in the ring with a legend like Gail Kim or two quality competitors like Marty Bell and Jade. You know, Jade's the former Knockouts champion, okay? But this just proves that the Knockouts division as a whole is truly the backbone of the entire TNA company, all right? I can't stress that enough. But, hey, shout out to also the young lady that's formerly known as Cherry Bomb. She's out there outside. She helps push the storylines along. There's Maria Kanellis Bennett, who helps out with the Knockouts as well. It's really just a great overall package there. They do a good job, okay? There's also the whole Matt and Jeff Hardy, a.k.a. Brother Nero, saga that continues here. As you folks remember, last week they had the final deletion where Matt and Jeff took each other on in a match, They were doing all kinds of crazy things in there. The whole thing is like one long movie that has definitely created some buzz. Unfortunately, it hasn't translated to much for TNA as a company, okay? Whatever they gained in ratings last week as a result of Matt and Jeff Hardy taking on each other in this weird concept match with this kind of movie thing going on, they gained some numbers there. People were definitely watching more last week than ever before, but then it dipped this past week, okay? And that's unfortunate. And that's not a product of Matt and Jeff Hardy doing something wrong. That's just a product of TNA not capitalizing on their gains. TNA, you're sitting on a gold mine storyline with this final deletion stuff. But you must figure out how to capitalize and monetize. Okay? And you better figure it out fast before fans turn the channel for good. Seriously. Speaking of Matt Hardy, he got into some kind of crazy war of words with WWE's Bray Wyatt on Twitter, which was nothing short of hilarious, by the way. I mean, these two weirdos carrying on with each other online, it just, you couldn't help but crack up over it, okay? I'm going to dig into that story in a moment. But first, folks, I got to give a special shout out to my friends over at Remember to Hit Record, okay? I'm talking about the brash and grumpy Lavelle, the in-your-face Miss Lady, hey Miss Lady, and the common voice of reason, Old Man Wade. Together, these three have a fantastic show that covers a variety of current event topics, and they do so in a manner that'll make you laugh, make you want to fight, or like me, you're somewhere in between, depending on what's going on, okay? I refer to these folks as the barbershop of podcasts because they have this anything goes style here that most people can relate to, okay? Visit www.remembertohitrecord.podbay.com to hear what everyone is talking about. Enjoy. It's WWE recap time. Now look, before the break, I mentioned a war of words between Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. This was going on Twitter. Now, as you know, folks, Matt Hardy has taken some deranged character that is hell-bent on destroying his brother Jeff, a.k.a. Brother Nero, as Matt Hardy likes to call him. Last week, TNA aired The Final Deletion, which was a pro wrestling match between Matt and Jeff in a backyard, complete with weird music and crazy imagery, jumping off of trees. These guys, they even were shooting Roman candles at each other. I mean, just bizarre. It was so awful, it was good. Well, not to be outdone, the WWE decides they're going to have New Day take on the Wyatt family on the Wyatt family compound. And some kind of fight, I can't even call it a match because it wasn't like anybody was trying to get pinned or anything like that, okay? They filmed this exchange in something that looked eerily similar to TNA's Final Deletion. Okay, they had weird references and hokey action and all kinds of nonsense. Listen, it was a ripoff, and it really wasn't as good as the original, okay? So Matt Hardy goes on Twitter, and he points out that he was imitated by WWE. He kind of makes fun of them. Well, this set Bray Wyatt off, okay, folks? And you know Bray Wyatt's kind of crazy. So he fires back a series of tweets where he claims that there would be no Final Deletion without Bray Wyatt. And he also says that Matt Hardy is doing nothing but just copying the Bray Wyatt gimmick. Now, folks, give me a break here, okay? Has Bray Wyatt lost his mind? I mean, seriously. First and foremost, the Bray Wyatt character is loosely based on a former WWE character from years and years ago, played by Big Danny Spivey. Okay, the character was known as Waylon Mercy. He was, and you can look him up. Just Google Waylon Mercy for more information there. He essentially was a ripoff of a Robert De Niro character from the critically acclaimed movie Cape Fear. So, Wyatt is not as original as he wants to believe he is. Now, look, he's as good as it gets as far as what he does. Okay, he does a very good job playing this character. But for the most part, it's all been done before by somebody else. And wrestling fans know this, Bray. Okay? As you can imagine, this caused all sorts of memes and people making fun of Bray Wyatt. Geez, even Big E got in on the mix, shooting out messages and things like that to Bray on Twitter, making fun of him for saying that essentially he invented this whole thing here. Stop it, okay? Stop it. I'm not sure if this is real or if this is just some kind of gimmick that the two wrestlers have come up with, and they're trying to ignite something. Who knows? And to be quite honest with you, I don't really care either way. I do hope that Bray doesn't feel in his heart of hearts that people are copying him and that he invented stuff, because that would show that he's not paying attention to his pro wrestling history. And I don't think Bray Wyatt is that ridiculous, okay? But I will say this, it was funny. It was funny to see Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt make fun of each other and talk trash to each other and all that garbage online. It kind of reminded me of Vader and Will Ospreay, except the whole Vader and Will Ospreay thing is pretty real. Ospreay is shaking in his boots. I have it on good authority that he's out there shaking in his boots. And I have it on good authority that he should be shaking in his boots. Because when Vader gets in the ring with him next month for Rev Pro, and you can visit RevolutionProWrestling.com for more information on that match, Vader's going to beat the ever-living daylights out. So, yeah, good luck to you, young William. But getting back to this nonsense between Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy here, just pure insanity. That's all it is, folks. Just pure insanity. And shout out to Matt Hardy. Hey, man, I enjoy the nonsense that you're doing. So what more is there to say? In other WWE news, we are on a one-way course to the WWE brand split. Okay? Now, this is where they're going to officially separate Raw and SmackDown into two separate brands. Okay? Two separate companies with totally separate rosters. So next Monday and Tuesday, the draft is going to take place. So it'll be live on Monday Night Raw, and then I believe they're going to finish up live on Tuesday Night SmackDown. Once again, folks, this is all happening on the USA Network. So SmackDown is moving to Tuesdays. It's going to be live on Tuesdays. We're talking back-to-back wrestling nights, pure, unbelievable action with separate stars. So this is great, okay? This is an exciting moment in pro wrestling history. And hopefully it translates into better quality pro wrestling overall. They have the talent to pull it off. But the higher-ups really need to just get out of the way and let the wrestlers do what they do best. That's wrestle and entertain the fans. Stay tuned to see what's going to happen there, folks. WWE NXT. Oh, my goodness. They had a spectacular episode, with the main event being Shinsuke Nakamura taking on his old friend, Finn Balor. Now, folks, you know that Nakamura and Finn Balor come from New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they've had battles all over that side of the world there. But this was, to my knowledge, the first time that they've had a match with each other in the United States, and they did so in NXT, okay? Now look, Baylor's scheduled to be called up soon to the main roster. So this was probably his last NXT match. And to make it special, this match lasted for over 30 minutes. And let me tell you something. It was worth every single second of it, okay? In the end, Nakamura pulled off the victory with his patented finisher, formerly known as the Bumaye. I think he called it the Kinsatsuka, some kind of nonsense. I can't pronounce it right there. But make no mistake about it, folks. Balor and Nakamura are two of the best wrestlers on the planet. And they will be headlining main roster pay-per-views in the not-too-distant future, okay? Once again, it is imperative that the higher-ups in the WWE get out of the way of the wrestlers, okay, and allow them to do what they do best, wrestle and entertain the fans. Stay tuned and we'll see what happens there. We had the Cruiserweight Classic hosted by the WWE. This took place directly after NXT on Wednesday. And folks, for anyone who wants to see it, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. you have WWE NXT on the WWE Network. And at 9 p.m. they have this Cruiserweight Classic. Now, as I stated before, this is a tournament pitting 32 of the top cruiserweights from all over the world against each other in a single elimination match. In those matches, whoever makes it to the final and wins the final match will be declared once and for all the top cruiserweight on the planet. Okay? Let me tell you something. Cruiserweight Classic, a.k.a. the CWC, very light on promos. They're not doing a whole lot of talking. You're not going to watch the CWC and see a wrestler talking for 15 straight minutes like you see on Raw. Okay? So they're very light on the promos, but they're heavy on the pro wrestling action. And I love it. Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan, they're the two that are tasked with commentating this thing. Okay? And they do an excellent job bringing a big fight feel to the action. Okay? Expert commentary and expert analysis. You got Mauro, who is not just a pro wrestling commentator. He also does MMA. He commentated for New Japan Pro Wrestling for years. This guy knows his stuff. And Daniel Bryan has wrestled all over the world. He's held titles all over the world. He's battled some of the best wrestlers in the history of the business. He knows his stuff. Okay? So it's truly a pleasure not only to watch the Cruiserweight Classic, but to also hear it. Okay? The wrestlers do their part with the high-quality in-ring action. And there were two guys this week in particular that I wanted to give a shout-out to. Kota Ibushi from Japan and Hong Kong's HoHo Loon. Now listen, Ibushi was a major star in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And a lot of folks consider him the odds-on favorite to win the entire CWC tournament. HoHo Loon is a relative newcomer to American pro wrestling fans. In fact, I don't even think he's wrestled in America before. Like, this is literally his first time wrestling in America. Now, he's a veteran of China's Middle Kingdom Wrestling promotion. Shout out to Adrian and the boys over at Middle Kingdom Wrestling. But really, this is his first exposure to the United States. Okay? And what a stage to perform on as a first time here. Okay? If I can give HoHo Loon any advice, it would be that he must continue to rely on mat wrestling sensibilities and his ability to connect with the crowd, which he did pretty well in his opening round matchup. He's got to resist the temptation of doing too many high spots, a.k.a. flippy moves. All right? That will be the way he'll continue to last in a very stacked and very competitive tournament. No one knows who HoHo Loon is for the most part. They're starting to take notice now. This guy's got to continue to just grind it out and make wise decisions in that ring. And when he does a high-impact move, do it when it can gain the most attention. Don't just flip around just to flip around. It's ridiculous. As for Ibushi, I mean, this guy looks like he has springs in his feet. He can stand on solid ground and jump up in the air and kick a man in the face who's 7 feet tall. I mean, Ibushi is just, he's tremendous. You know, this guy, hey, but what do you expect from somebody who comes from New Japan Pro Wrestling? They really do a good job of preparing their wrestlers over there. And don't be surprised if you see some of these competitors from the Cruiserweight Classic gain WWE contracts. Because once again, when you have a situation like the WWE brand split, where you have SmackDown and you have Raw as two separate entities, and you also still have NXT, you're talking about literally 3 separate pro wrestling rosters that you have to fill. So this whole concept of the Cruiserweight Classic is great because it's another feeder system, okay? You can figure out who's worth it and who's not, and you know, the guys who are worth it, you can bring them in. And it exposes the fans to who they are, so you're starting to educate the fans on what else is going on all over the world there. It's good stuff. And with that said, folks, we'll be back with final thoughts. But first, listen, I got to take the time to congratulate my friends over at Barnyard Cheese, okay? Barnyard Cheese. They were honored by the Travel Channel with the Chow Master's Best Breakfast Sandwich Award. Can you believe that? Now, the winning sandwich, and it's delicious, it's called the Wit. Now, you got to listen to these ingredients here. 2 eggs, roast beef, bacon, cheddar, jalapenos, poblano home fries, cilantro, Milan salt, and skoolie salsa. And that's all in between 2 slices of flat Portuguese-style olive oil bread. Are you kidding me? Folks, stop wasting time. Head over to Barnyard Cheese over at 149 Avenue C. Now, that's in between 9th and 10th Streets in New York City. Visit www.barnyardcheese.com for further info. Enjoy. Folks, next week we have a action-packed show where I'll be giving my thoughts on the WWE Draft. Who are the winners? Who are the losers? I'll also cover Impact Wrestling, NXT, and round 2 of the CWC, Cruiserweight Classic. As always, you can continue to find me on Facebook, on Twitter, Medium.com, Blogger, YouTube, Audible.com. All of these areas here, you can find me at Duke Loves Wrestling. That's RASSLIN. Shoot me a message. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Give me some suggestions on some folks that you'd love me to interview. The whole 9 yards here, folks. I really appreciate the love that we've received. We're getting hits all over the world, big time all over Europe and Asia and Africa, South America, North America. I mean, just tremendous love here. We're averaging about 20 hits per hour when you combine all of our previous shows. Still, people are tuning in, listening, and hey, I can't do anything but just thank you and encourage you to continue to spread the word, and I'll continue to deliver to you a pro wrestling podcast that you can be proud of and you can enjoy. That's right. Now, folks, listen, it's nice to be kind to yourself, but remember, be kind to others as well, okay? Because we are here to help others. This is your man of the hour, Duke Loves Wrestling, saying bye-bye, everybody.